Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking that stack of sources you provided and we're on a pretty surgical mission, I'd say.
A very specific one.
We're diving deep into just one location, the coastal city of Essaouira, to understand a really fundamental question. Why this city? Why was this place chosen as the philosophical anchor, what the documents call the beating heart for World Travelers United? Or WTU.
And right away, it's clear this isn't just about branding.
Right.
WTU isn't some new travel club. The source material frames it as a philosophy. It's all about the essence of human movement. What happens when people actually meet, the idea of sharing, and how that leads to this idea of a collective evolution.
Okay, so let's unpack that, because it's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? That's the hook for me.
It is.
If you're launching a huge global movement, something to change behavior on a massive scale, you'd normally plant your flag in.
Yeah.
What is Geneva, Silicon Valley?
New York, London,
Yeah.
a global hub.
Exactly. A place defined by speed, by media power. But WTU, they explicitly say it was not born in an impersonal metropolis. Instead, Essaouira is the beating heart. They even call it a fer sur la côte atlantique, a lighthouse on the Atlantic coast.
And that choice, choosing the lighthouse over the skyscraper, that's their first big statement. Anchoring in a human-sized, culturally dense city immediately tells you everything about WTU's values. It says they care more about depth and human connection than, say, corporate infrastructure.
That makes a lot of sense. They're setting the entire framework just by picking a place on the map. So let's start there with Essaouira itself, the anti-metropolis anchor, let's call it.
Good name for it.
What is it about this place that makes it the right petri dish for a global movement? I mean, it's nicknamed the City of the Trade Winds.
Right.
Which sounds lovely, but how does that history and that atmosphere provide what you need for global ambition?
Right. Well, it connects directly to its identity as a natural crossroad. That's the key. The sources really emphasize that its history has, and I'm quoting here, woven indissoluble ties between cultures, religions, continents, and for centuries.
It's not a new thing.
Not at all. This wasn't a place where people just, tolerated each other. They were actively meeting, trading, coexisting. They built a real, sustained tradition of intersectionality. That organic mixing of people is the perfect template for WTU's entire vision.
So that history gives it weight, gives it provenance, and the sources also talk about the current atmosphere. They call it a terre de co, a land of welcome, known for authenticity, spiritual richness, and this phrase, douceur de vivre, a gentle way of life.
And that phrase, the douceur de vivre, that's actually a core concept here.
How so?
It's a deliberate contrast to the frantic pace of modern travel. WTU is all about deep, slow engagement. You can't really preach a philosophy of profound encounters from a place that's all about speed and anonymity. The environment itself has to force you to slow down, to listen.
I have to push back just a little on that, though. Strategically.
Okay.
We're talking about a global evolution movement. Doesn't that slower pace, that gentle vibe, risk being seen as, quaint, or maybe lacking logistical power?
Sure, that's the risk.
Global change usually needs speed, capital, media. You get that in New York, not necessarily a historic port city. Is it romantic or is it just risky?
I think that tension is exactly why it's so strategic. They are deliberately rejecting those traditional power structures. If they started in a metropolis, they'd just be another NGO. By choosing a city that embodies the anti-metropolis ideal, they're betting that authenticity is actually more valuable than instant visibility.
Legitimacy over lobbying.
Exactly.
Okay, that shifts the focus. It's not just about the physical place, it's about the ideological environment, which brings us to the philosophical heartbeat of this whole thing. If they needed legitimacy, they didn't just pick a pretty spot. They picked a place whose values are, they're world-renowned.
Absolutely. The location reinforces the philosophy through its official status. I mean, Essaouira's Medina is a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
And that's global shorthand for this place matters.
It is. It immediately gives weight to a movement focused on cultural preservation. It signals that this isn't just a historically important place, it's globally significant, a place worth studying.
So UNESCO status gives it historical clout, but the real ideological core they're tapping into is this concept of vivre ensemble.
Living together.
Right, living together in peace.
Yeah.
The source calls it the modèle Souiri, the Essaouira model. And this isn't some abstract idea, it's a living, breathing thing there.
It's the pivot point for the entire WTU narrative. This vivre ensemble model is a successful, historical, and contemporary blueprint for coexistence. And you can't talk about that without talking about its main champion, Andre Azoulay.
Right, tell us about him. The sources really stress his role. He's the counselor to the king and the president founder of the association Essaouira My.
And his involvement is what really elevates the whole project. He's a major political and cultural figure who has spent decades promoting these exact values: openness, inclusion, and this conviction that diversity is the plus grande richesse, the greatest richness.
So WTU isn't inventing these values?
No, they're intentionally aligning with his established work. They aren't just borrowing a pretty city, they're linking themselves to a powerful, successful, and politically endorsed story of peace.
That makes the strategy so much clearer. They're leveraging an existing moral legacy, one that's already a success on the world stage.
Yes, it lets them bypass that long, hard process of building credibility from nothing. They're basically inheriting it through their association with Azoulay and his work.
Okay, so let's connect the dots.
Yeah.
From this local spirit to the global mission. For you, the listener, the traveler, what does this actually mean? How do you adopt the spirit of Mogador?
Well, by joining WTU, you're essentially committing to what the sources call that esprit de Mogador. And that spirit is defined by practical tolerance, deep exchange, mutual discovery. It demands that you move beyond just being a tourist.
So you're not just looking at an old city.
You're trying to live its values, even for a short time.
So this is way more than just booking an eco-friendly hotel. It's a behavioral contract.
It is. It's about prioritizing those deeper interactions. The movement itself frames travel as a tool for progress.
And the sources say WTU transforms travel into a force positive for global, social, and environmental good. That's a huge claim.
It's a massive claim, but they can make it because their mission aligns perfectly with the development vision already championed by the province of Essaouira. The roadmap is already there. WTU is just providing the global vehicle to drive it.
That's a powerful idea, a real synergy. Which brings us to the future vision here. What's the intended outcome for both Essaouira and WTU?
Well, the documents talk about the potential for a synergie puissante et naturelle, a powerful and natural synergy, and WTU is actively trying to forge a formal strategic alliance with the province and Amazouli's association.
To make it official.
Exactly. To institutionalize the relationship.
Okay, so let's break down the benefits. For Essaouira, the city, what do they get out of this?
They get a vitrine mondiale unique, a unique global showcase, but one that doesn't compromise their identity. WTU brings in a specific kind of traveler, conscious, respectful, engaged. The sources even project that these people will become ambassadors of the Siri identity around the world.
So it's very targeted, sustainable promotion.
Right. It validates decades of their own work.
And for WTU, what do they get? I mean, besides the philosophy, what's the practical upside of being based in a smaller city?
It gives them something money just can't buy. Une légitimité et une âme. Legitimacy and a soul. Without that deep historical base, WTU is just a nice idea. With Essaouira, it's a movement with an origin story, a moral framework, and a physical home port. The sources even call Essaouira a lieu de pèlerinage, a place of pilgrimage for people who believe in this vision.
It's fascinating. They're creating a spiritual capital for travel, not a corporate HQ. And the sources frame this whole alliance as an experiment, a pretty bold one. The goal is to amplify that Moroccan model of vivre ensemble, making Essaouira a laboratoire d'idées et d'action, a laboratory of ideas and actions for reinvented tourism.
That's the ultimate play. It's a testing ground. They're positioning Essaouira as the place where the hypothesis gets proven or disproven.
And the hypothesis is,
can deep cultural value actually redefine a massive global industry that usually just wants growth and profit? Essaouira is where we find out.
So the core insight here is pretty clear. The choice of Essaouira wasn't just some romantic whim. It was deeply strategic. It was chosen because it was the opposite of the impersonal metropolis. It offered a proven philosophy of peace, championed by powerful figures, that gave the movement the soul it needed to launch credibly.
It really is a reversal of the usual power dynamic. It suggests that real change doesn't have to come from the world's financial centers.
So what does this all mean for you listening? The mission here is to prove that a movement born from a ville à taille humaine, a human-sized city, can actually launch a global wave of change. And when you think about it, large-scale movements almost always come out of major centers, right? Berlin,
Mm.
Paris, Washington.
Always.
So what significant global change movement can you think of that deliberately avoided a global capital and instead chose a human-sized city to anchor its core principles? That's the extraordinary challenge Essaouira is taking on. And it really changes how you might think about where global change actually comes